What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about 3 things I want from Mafia 4. So, we've talked about Mafia 4 a little bit in the past, and you guys have really done an awesome job of supporting it, so I'm going to be continuing. I wanted to make this very different, very fun kind of video. I've done this before for a few different games, and they always are received pretty well. So, let me know what you guys think. If you guys want me to do more of these kind of videos, make sure you guys are liking these videos, sharing them, commenting, all that stuff. Subscribe, all that stuff to let me know that you guys like these kind of videos. So we're going to get Mafia 4 eventually, right? I think it's coming very, very soon. In fact, one of the recent things we talked about is that it is coming soon. The announcement is coming over the coming months, most likely at E3, if not, probably before. I mean, I would, it's definitely a coin flip, but I think at the latest we get at E3. So when we see it, not necessarily like these are 3 things that I want to see when they first show it, but here's 3 things that I want this game to do in general. The first thing is the whole world building, the whole like time skipping and growing. I want that in the game. So that's only a rumor. It's only, I guess, a leak up until this point, right? That this takes place over several years, over several decades, right? Las Vegas, you get to kind of build your empire. These buildings are going to advance. You're going to get people that work for you. So basically like a living community. There is a spin-off of that, and that's actually another thing I want, so we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But I definitely want to see that, because even when I was talking about those things like in these videos to you guys, that seemed to be one of the things that really jumped out with people, where it's like, hey, if this is it's like a time-lapse kind of thing, and you can see the city evolving, and you can see kind of like your empire, because there's not that many games like that. It really, that would definitely make it very different than GTA. Games like The Godfather, remember those games back in the day? Those games were pretty solid, and those games did have to do with kind of buying up property and creating like, a group that would follow what you're doing. You could call them in, and they had like economy aspects to it. Like, I like that. And so if you were to do that now, what Mafia 4 sounded like it was doing is definitely something that I want to see. So that's absolutely, I know it's not necessarily something that can be guaranteed, because if that feature just flat out like was misreported, or it's just not in this game, then I'm going to be disappointed. But I really do feel in order to make this game different from GTA, in order to make it different from Saints Row, and I mean, yes, it is different from those just in general, and we've talked about that, but to really stand out and to be something special, I really feel like something like that, again, where you can buy up properties and they can expand and they'll do better throughout time, and then those give you perks and those give you like abilities to do certain things, and again, like it takes place over several years in which you can see the city changing. I think that is a very, very cool thing that hasn't really been done to my knowledge, especially recently. Something like that I think would definitely make this game much, much better. Second thing is livable city. So I think Mafia 3 didn't have like an LA Noire issue. LA Noire, and it was heavily like chronicled why, but LA Noire had pretty much a dead city, right? There was nothing going on in its city. Even people had said like, hey, there was only, I believe, 2 artists, like game artists that were working on it at a given time, and they were working on like the faces, so they actually just didn't have the people or resources to make a livable city. So that's why when you're driving LA Noire, there's just nobody there. Now that's not the same thing with Mafia 3, but even Mafia 3, which also had an emphasis on, hey, livable city, like there's things going on. I mean, it was, but it, again, when we're thinking about, and the more I talk about this game, the more I definitely want it to succeed. I mean, the first video I made, funny enough, the first video I made about this game, there wasn't like a massive interest from me. People were asking me in comments and stuff to talk about Mafia, and so I eventually did it. And now the more I talk about it, the more it's like, well, it's not my favorite game franchise, and it's not like a game that I'm going to be like pinned to my TV like when it's first announced, but it's a game I'm rooting for, and it's a game that I think if they do all of the right things, it'll definitely get my money's worth, right? I'll definitely buy it, but I think it can truly be special. But again, connecting all that together, it needs to be special. It needs to stand out. So yes, while Mafia 3 did make that attempt and said like, hey, this is something we want to do. We want to make the city, feel like it's alive, and that's a big part of any open world game now. I think really ever since The Witcher came out, it's like, well, firstly, you have to compare like every game to The Witcher because it's just so amazing. But it really made it feel like no matter where you were going, anywhere in that world, it was being lived in, and things were always happening, and games have done it since. I don't necessarily think they've done it as well since, but just like, and it's not even open world, really any game that has any kind of environment that you can kind of explore that's not insanely linear, you want things going on. And again, yes, like there's cars, there's people on the streets, like there is stuff in Mafia 3, but you really need to take it to the next level. And I will give them credit though, if the first thing that I talked about, if those rumors are true, right, and if those things happen, I think that's a big help to it. I think that can definitely elevate it, and that, because that's just an extra thing you add, where it's like, okay, well, you're going to see buildings evolve, you're going to see things happen, you're going to see the city evolve over time because you're buying up things, and things are just changing because the years are going on. Different cars, right, different variations or different like models of cars are going to be there, all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, well, that is a fantastic base to part 2, right? Livable city. Like, make it something where, okay, now populate the streets, have me be able to do stuff around the city, around the world, the open world, wherever I'm allowed to go. Have there be things to do, have there be really interesting side things to do and side quests from people, and maybe experiment. I've always been a fan of like games that, any game that can have you go into more places, like more buildings, is like a thumbs up from me. I've always been like, I want an open world game one day where any single place that you see, like any building, you can go in it. And that's that would be very, very difficult for any engine to muster. But again, like it's just personally for me, like you'll get brownie points the more you're able to do that. But things like that, that's not specifically what I'm looking for, but things in that kind of realm, right? Make it a very livable and believable city. Because again, like GTA 6 is probably going to release around the same time, in quotations, around the same time, right? Because it could release maybe a year later, maybe like a year. But if it releases anywhere near close, 6 to 12 months, like in between, that's, if that game comes out and it's just 1,000 times better, that is a really big problem. And the third thing is a really, really good story. Kind of like a cop out there, but the thing that drove Mafia 3, I think, leading into it, I'll say from my own, this is a video about my own personal things. I'd love to hear, and I do want to hear your guys, like, what do you want to see from Mafia? Let me know. But from my perspective, going into Mafia 3, I bought this game day one. I actually was an early supporter. I was looking forward to this game. I bought into the whole, hey, we've made mistakes, but we've also had solid games, time to take it to the next level and be an elite game. And I fell for that, and I guess you could say, if you guys like Mafia 3, then you didn't fall for it, but I feel like I fell for it, because I really didn't enjoy Mafia 3 all that much. I didn't beat it. I didn't play through the whole thing. It kind of got boring, and that's just my own personal opinion. Again, if you guys disagree, that's totally cool. I'm glad if you guys liked it, but that's why, again, I want to see these improvements, because I want to play this game from beginning to end. I want a good game. But again, the story, now the cinematics were something that definitely drove me too, but how the game was telling its story was something that I feel was very pushed on us when the game was being announced, when the game was being talked, but in a good way. Like, that's something you want to push, right? That you have an engaging story, that the story is pretty different, that, it's, again, going to take place over several years, like all those kind of things. Very, very cool. But then when you play the game, it's like, I guess I would say the story is probably again, I didn't play the whole thing, so I don't even know. But I would say I feel like the story was probably the strongest part of the whole game, but that's still not saying much, because, again, I really didn't enjoy Mafia 3 all that much, and I quit, and I didn't even play it all the way. So it's like, well, the story wasn't that good, because the story wasn't like so good that it kept me going, even though the rest of the things weren't that good. It wasn't even that, right? So again, GTA, and I guess the thing that it has to its advantage is GTA's stories, I don't think, have ever been its shining star. Yes, they're always very good, and sometimes they're absolutely amazing, right? When GTA 4 came out, that story is oftentimes looked at as one of the better, stories in those kind of open world games. So I'm not saying they've had bad stories, but they've been very consistent, they've been very solid, there's been really, really good moments, but I don't think the story is what drives people to get GTA. I feel like it's more of the open world approach and how many things there are to do, and again, being in this really believable living city. So again, for Mafia, it's time to put everything together. Okay, you have this growing city that's going to evolve over time. Okay, you're trying to catch up, you're trying to make it be like GTA, right, where it is big and there are so many things to do and all that. Fine, that's great. Okay, now the story needs to be able to carry it as well. Okay, the story needs to be something that's driving it, and especially because all these things are kind of wishful thinking as well. But if you think about it, Mafia has, I believe, kind of been more of the story, kind of the grittier, oriented. So if you're going to do that, I feel like just like my predictions of what they'll probably shoot for with this new game is still emphasis on the story, which is fine, and I want that. Hopefully that doesn't leave out the open world aspects, but if you're going to do that, the story better be really, really good. And again, I don't know what the general opinion is on the story of Mafia 3. I feel like people generally thought it was good, not great. That's fine. I guess you could keep it like that, and everything else, if everything else is elevated, then you have overall a better game. But still, I feel like the story needs to be elevated just a little bit more, get it to that upper elite territory of open world game stories, and then you could really have a phenomenal game. So guys, those are my 3 things that I want to see from Mafia 4. Let me know in the comments below again, what are some things you want to see? Do you want to see me do more videos like this? I could do a list of like things I don't want to see in the game. I've done that before with other games, but let me know what you want to see Mafia 4 related from me in the comments below. Make sure you guys are subscribed to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. I hope to see you all on the next video.